This video is a continuation of the first part of the IceBerg video, so keep an eye out because things are going to get weirder and more unknown. Facts that even you have been in the M.P.E for a long time, you won't know them. There will be controversial topics and new curiosities that we decided to put on in an IceBerg. So, hello, I'm Tyzer, and I'm still the co-creator of the M.P.E. And welcome once again to the IceBerg M.P.E. Part 2. The Deep. Evil Endo. The classic characters contain a recreation of Scott's beta endoskeleton, where they have a more aggressive appearance. It's unknown why they contain this endo. The only one that demonstrates to have this as a main endo is the classic Black Bear. Thank you, Emulator and Roger Wood. A big thank you from Emulator and Narrator Wood appears on Twitter, showing everything behind the two models. And this would contain other characters like Nezo and Bluzzy. Classic Gore Eyes. Just like the Evil Endo topic, they contain even stranger eyes, referring to the rare screens from Five Nights at Freddy's 1. In fact, demonstrate a genuine importance of how weird they can be. Showcases. This refers literally to the series Showcase Animatronics, which has important scenes never seen before of old models and designs of the private M.P.E. This series would not only show the models as jump scares of the same. 3 episodes were catalogued: Showcase Animatronics Episode 1, Fan-Made Animatronics Jump Scares, and a possible Showcase Animatronics Episode 2. But this one never came out after a problem on Emulator's computer. Some pictures of the episode were found. Besides, this one can be considered the grandfather of the Ultimate Showcase. It gave a rise to spin-off known as Showcase Emulators, which would be a mini-series showing all the emulators, including the date of origin and other aspects as the episodes passed, however, never had older episodes, then becoming the current Ultimate Showcase. M.P.E. Maps. M.P.E. contains several animatronics, but will also contain maps. After the M.P.E. became public, a Five Nights at Freddy's 2 style office was revealed in a hangar of the Withereds, but never appeared anymore, and no other map was ever mentioned. 8-bit Emulator. The strange minigame version of Emulator was a concept to introduce a pack of 2D minigames inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's 2 to sister location minigames, fully made in 3D, and would contain important things for future characters. Twisted's version 1 concept. Twisted's pack appeared in the old version of M.P.E. In theory, it should include Twisted Emulator with 2 different versions of color and a Twisted Black Bear. However, after a conflict of ideas, only 2 Twisted Emulator were finished. Twisted Emulator and Black Bear would have the color palettes inspired by 2019 counterparts models of Emulator and Black Bear. In 2021, they changed the models to be the Twisteds. Emulator will keep the red, but will be complete black, while Black Bear will continue with its original skin color, but it will change its green to purple. Bottom of the ocean. Ghostwood. There would be a strange version of Hodger Wood being referred to as a hoax. He would be included in the toy and funtime versions. Nothing else was mentioned in the M.P.E, other than the character list, and this perhaps is his first mention. M.P.E versus NOS. Being one of the most controversial topics, the M.P.E was not the first package that had this concept. Several others had this idea, as the famous UFMP, or the Yin Yang pack, that inspired the M.P.E. NOS, being an abbreviation of the name Nazots, stands out for being the most similar to the M.P.E. It had conflicts with the pack because of its big similarity with the older version of the M.P.E. The pack was accused by the M.P.E team of plagiarism. Current, we know that the pack is called NTR, short for Nis the Raccoon. It seems to be on hiatus for now. TMP. Currently, a few people know about this pack. At the same time, everyone knows in a different way. Coming from the acronym, the Master Pack. It was the pack created by Tyzer, inspired by the idea of emulator in 2021. The pack contained versions of Black Bear and Razy from Five Nights at Freddy's 1 to Sister Location. Like the M.P.E, TMP was the continuation of an old pack of the same name made in 2090, with the Tyzer models of the time. TNP and M.P.E. After the creation of the packs worked together, helping each other side by side, until Emulator and Tyzer reached an agreement and joined the two packs together, forming a Ultra Pack, which became the current version of M.P.E. A curious fact that no one really knows is that the idea of a chat with the list of the models was originally created in the TMP by Tyzer. So, Emulator, after the merge, asked to adapt to the M.P.E, and so it was done. Fantastic Emulator. Fantastic Emulator was a continuation of Funtime Emulator, and even more advanced. This model was a test for new versions of the M.P.E when it was still a private server, but it was planned that it would contain new characters, and a new pizzeria dedicated to them, really similar to the fun game Pop Goes. E-animatronics. The original concept of an Emunod appeared long before the M.P.E, and curiously, Emulator didn't made it, but Tyzer did. When Fine Day, the co-creator of the M.P.E, decided to make OC versions of Emulator and Black Bear as Enods, so the E-animatronics pack appeared. The models did not have the current names. They were named E-Emulator and E-Master Shadow, and the E stands for Enod. Over the time, Emulator had liked the idea so much that he adapted new versions of this idea, making the E-Emulator the current Emunod. And after asking a lot to Tyzer, Tyzer created Melted Bear as an update of the EMS. Extras, Classics. In addition to the Evil Endo and Go Eyes topics, there would be a new alternative version inspired by the Five Nights at Freddy's Anniversary Classics, where it has all the Five Nights at Freddy's development progress. The M.P.E model that had this extra version was just the classic emulator, without the texture and endo arms giving thumbs up. Darkness. Godzilla emulator. As I once said, M.P.E focus on Five Nights at Freddy's OCs, but there are cases where the creators or staffs decided to focus on something outside of the common M.P.E models. As in this case, Emulator is a big fan of Godzilla, and decided a long time ago to create an OC for him of Godzilla. Originally called Emuzilla, recently got a nickname, the Imperator. CDB. Being the first and most controversial case of the M.P.E, CDB was one of the first former members in the M.P.E team. He was part of the first M.P.E team before even the server. Along with Tyzer and Emulator, he made models and designs for the M.P.E. And even today, it is a great relic of M.P.E. Because thanks to him, models like Classic, Funtime and Toy Emulator, they had their first fully modeled versions made by him. After a conflict, CDB decided to withdraw from the M.P.E in 2021 and pursued a solo modeling career. Some of his former models can be seen in the Showcase animatronic series, such as Happy, the green bird, and Albert, the grey dog. Welcome to Emulators 1 and 2. Interestingly, M.P.E had a fan game, or almost. At some point, someone who probably knew the M.P.E project decided to steal some image from the M.P.E, claiming they were for his fan game. Some people entered the M.P.E thinking that Emulator was the owner of this fan game. Curiously, the sequel trailer was released before the first game even came out, being a video of a VHS series made by Tyzer and Emulator. But before the creators of the M.P.E discovered that fan game had been cancelled by fear of them discover that he had stolen. Simply bizarre. Riendo. This model was originally made by CDB. Riendo would be a version of Yendo from M.P.E. Coming from the name Red Endo, he would be the endoskeleton of Funtime Emulator, with some small differences. His only appearance was in the list of models next to Ghost Rogerwood, meaning this video could be his first appearance. Tyzer's Reindeer. Tyzer had several C's after Black Bear. The third was Tyzer Reindeer, never given a name, as he was originally supposed to be Tyzer's main OC, after being replaced by a B in 2021. But Tyzer plans to bring this reindeer back for M.P.E, named after Elliot Reindeer. Freak Show Spec. Even before the book models, or even the M.P.E himself, a pack was created by Tyzer and Emulator, a pack called the Freak Show Spec. These would be versions of the books Fazbear Frights, made by Tyzer and Emulator. Tyzer had the Freak Show Tyzer, that will be an Into the Pit version of Black Bear, and Emulator had the Freak Show Emulator, that was a Count the Ways emulator. The models were originally for an unknown series that was cancelled. After the cancellation, they reused the models for a possible pack in the future. Old Emulator design. In 2018, before M.P.E, much earlier, Emulator had a different style, so to speak. Before the classic yellow hair, with a hat and red outfit. We had a strange emulator, totally red with a inner head and its light green body details. This was emulator 18, and curiously, it wasn't even 3D, it was 2D, made in a mobile program called Draw Cartoons 2. Scrap Times Pack. Still in the private era of M.P.E, Emulator decided to create a pack with models inspired by the scraps from Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator. But it had only two versions of Emulator, version 1 and version 2, considered by the team to be the best emulator model of the time. Emulator has asked Tyzer to make a version 2 of an old 2019 Black Bear scrap model, but it was never made. The Abyss. Wanted. Originally created as a blacklight version of the original 2019 emulator, that's why its name is Wanted, inspired by the name Help Wanted. Wanted went through several changes over time, then was remade by Emulator still in 2019 as an anime dude mixed with Emulator. At the time, it was called What End because of a wrong writing of Emulator, which was corrected by Tyzer at the time. Tyzer decided to make a model for Emulator and show him he had created an Adventure Wanted inspired in the square design from Adventure Anime Dude, thus creating the current Adventure Wanted. The model made by Tyzer is still used today. Putin's design. Emulator had one single time a totally different design. Inspired by a drawing of a fan of Emulator, he made a glam rock model with this design, which this drawing had an Emulator with a more blue than red details and an orange scarf. However, this style was never mentioned again. Cringe Emulator. Considered much more of a joke by the team, this cringe emulator was technically a salvage emulator version of the cursed video Five Nights at Freddy's 3 The Music by Liu Jin in 3D. This model was from one of the first versions of the M.P.E, when it didn't even have a server. Simply bizarre. The glitz. Even in the first version of the M.P.E, when it was a simple file, there were two glitch emulators, or malware emulators, inspired by Glitch Trap from Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. Curiously, this version of emulator had a glitch hardcore mode version. Not only that curiously there's a rumor that Tyzer had made a Black Bear glitch trap for the TMP, but this model was never shown. M.P.E cartoon designs. Simply, Emulator wanted to create designs inspired by the teaser animations for Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, thus making Emulator, Black Bear, and Razy. But even before that, CDB had made their own versions of Emulator, Black Bear, and their two characters. Tyzer plans to make their 50s cartoons versions of the M.P.E. Golden Freddy, M.P.E. A few people have a problem with this after the Black Bear teaser. Who would be M.P.E.'s Golden Freddy? As Razy would be a Foxy, Emulator a Freddy, Bluzzy a Chica, and Hollywood a Bonnie. So who would be Golden Freddy? Black Bear or Yellow Hair? And the answer is both and none. The M.P.E doesn't care about making the characters exactly the same as Five Nights at Freddy's. So there is no such thing as such character would be such. But the inspirations of both are curious, because Tyzer made Black Bear inspired in the recent Fredbear UCN, or the recent Golden Freddy, Cassidy, you know, very vengeant and hateful, while Emulator made Yellow Hair inspired by an old Golden Freddy, when we all think he was a hallucination and etc. A yellow bear from Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Great times. Before Update 1 The Circus or even E-Animatronics, Tyzer and Emulator had made their own fun times, and to differentiate them a little, they were called Great Times, so they can be considered as a beta of M.P.E.'s fun times. Total Limbo. Five Nights at Emulator 2 trailer. A trailer was planned on the first anniversary of the M.P.E, in the same style as the first one that was celebrating the anniversary of Emulator. At the same time, this will be the anniversary of the M.P.E, and with that Five Nights at Freddy's trailer style, only with some differences. The end of the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 models was expected on the M.P.E, but even after that, it never had such trailer. And this idea was never discussed with anyone other than the M.P.E staff team. Inspired by Yin Yang. For the few who knew Yin Yang, he was a Five Nights at Freddy's modeler who practically created the M.P.E concept and inspired Emulator to continue and create his pack. Few things were left of his incredible models, because he left the Five Nights at Freddy's community and stopped modeling Five Nights at Freddy's models. But always, he will be remembered in our hearts, and we all hope he is doing well and happy. Spring Odds Emulator. Something even bizarre, considered by Tyzer to be a mistake in his life, and by Emulator the best design ever created. This model was created by Tyzer in 2019, after finding this model of a Springtrap and Ennard meshed together, and remake it with Emulator's design. So this abomination was created, which it was recreated years later by a fan of the M.P.E. Emulator plans to bring this version to the current M.P.E. Project posters. At one point, Tyzer wanted to create a project inspired by the posters of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 to sister location, but he never continued this project. One of his arts was reused in a video that will be Showcase Animatronics Episode 2, and in a short animation of the song Turn the Lights Off by Tally Hall. The image was Razy in a Five Nights at Freddy's 3 style poster. After that, the project was never mentioned again and probably cancelled. Nightmare Circus. Tyzer and Emulator are very fans of the Baby Nightmare Circus fan game. Tyzer is starting making a model inspired by the Nightmare Ennard and Baby Geist, which had no name at the time. And Emulator, years later, made a Nightmare Fan Time 2, announced the continuation of the M.P.E Fun Games project. It is very likely that the Tyzer and Emulator will remake these models and create new ones. Trapid MES. This can be counted as the first version of the current salvage pair, which has a curious history. Tyzer at first did not like the idea of a model like that, and even considered it something shameful. And it still is. But Emulator said it was a very cool design, and after a lot of dedication, Tyzer redid this model 2 times, the most current being Salvage Bear. So, he can be counted as just a beta of the current Salvage Bear. Kitsune. This is probably the second most controversial subject of this IceBerg. Kitsune was created by Tyzer, being his second OC and probably the worst. Kitsune is a maned wolf, or a guara wolf, that is a Brazilian fox. But his model ended up being the controversy. After a serious conflict, Kitsune was cancelled and disappeared. But Tyzer thinks about bringing back this little wolf to the M.P.E with a new design. Beta and fixed fun times. In the update to the Circus 1, there is a prototype Bluzzy in it. It will be a beta of Funtime Bluzzy, inspired by the beta Funtimes show in the Five Nights at Freddy's sister location extras. And this will be seen more in the update to the Circus 2, that would not only contain him, but the prototype emulator, and would still contain the fixed versions inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's sister location Botton Services Nights. Inspired by Hiplower Cat. At the same time, Yin Yang was an inspiration for emulator, Hiplower was for Tyzer. Many people know him for his stylized spring locks or stylized witherheads. He inspired Tyzer to make more stylized models himself and even try starting modeling. Thank you all very much for watching the second part, or both parts, and getting in here. This project is very special for us, the creators of the M.P.E, because we are talking about subjects that have been there since 2090. The M.P.E is very old, it's concept in that case, but so thanks again. It motivates us to keep making these types of videos, so really thank you all for coming, watching this. I don't know how many times it can be, 2 hours, 1 hour, I don't know, it's probably big, but thank you. Please, if you're enjoying this project, leave a like, I don't know, share with your friends. I will like it. Well, once again, for the 100th time, I hope you haven't forgotten yet, mate. I'm Tyzer, and thanks for watching the IceBerg M.P.E.